Title: The Sleep Experiment Tapes. What they recorded still haunts me. Help this channel grow. Like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories. This helps us a lot. Thank you. The story begins: the rain in the Pacific Northwest doesn't fall, it drifts, a perpetual, cold mist that clings to everything. It was in this gray, suffocating stillness that Liam Evans first pointed his camera at the Blackburn Institute. The building was a monolith of forgotten ambition, its concrete stained dark by decades of moisture, its windows boarded up like blinded eyes. For Liam, an urban explorer with a successful YouTube channel dedicated to forgotten places, it was the Holy Grail. The scandal that closed Blackburn in 1985 was the stuff of local legend, whispers of ethical breaches and a sudden, quiet shutdown, but no concrete details ever surfaced. Securing permission from the distant, disinterested holding company had taken 6 months of paperwork. Now, standing before its heavy, oak doors, Liam felt a profound sense of unease, a primal urge to turn back. He dismissed it as excitement. The click of his heavy-duty flashlight was unnaturally loud in the silence. The beam cut through the gloom of the main hall, illuminating a landscape of decay. Dust motes danced in the light, thick as fog. The air was a cocktail of smells, wet rot, old paper, and beneath it all, the faint, antiseptic tang of a long-closed hospital. His boots crunched on plaster that had fallen from the ceiling. He filmed it all, narrating in a hushed tone for his future video. The main hall, you can almost feel the history here. It's heavy. He moved through administration offices, their desks still littered with faded forms and brittle carbon copies. He found patient rooms, their doors ajar, revealing iron bed frames bolted to the floor. In one, a solitary, leather restraint hung loose, swinging almost imperceptibly in the draft from the broken window. It was in the head psychiatrist's office, a surprisingly spacious room with a wall of empty bookshelves, that he found the anomaly. The room was dominated by a massive, steel desk. While filming its surface, his glove brushed against the paneling on the wall behind it. One panel felt loose. His heart hammered against his ribs. This was the kind of find explorers dreamed of. After a few minutes of careful prying, the panel swung inward to reveal a small, dark space. Not a room, but a compartment. And inside it sat a single object, a fireproof lockbox, military grade, its dark green paint unblemished by rust or time. The lock was sturdy, but decades-old mechanisms are no match for modern tools. With a final, metallic screech, the latch gave way. Liam's breath caught. There were no stacks of patient files, no secret journals. Instead, nestled in custom-cut foam, were 17 small, metal reel-to-reel tapes. Each was meticulously labeled with a typed, white sticker. The clinical precision of the labels was at odds with the clandestine nature of their hiding place. Back in the sterile, safe environment of his editing studio, the mystery deepened. The first few tapes were dry, almost boring. They featured the calm, measured voices of researchers, discussing baseline readings. But the tape numbers were wrong. They jumped from tape 4 to tape 7. Tapes 5 and 6 were missing. A deliberate removal. A redaction. With a growing sense of trepidation, Liam threaded tape 7. For the first 58 minutes, it was the same as the others, the slow, steady breathing of a man in deep sleep. Liam was almost lulled into a sense of calm. Then, a subtle change. The breathing pattern hitched, stuttered, and then smoothed out into something too perfect, too rhythmic. And then, a voice emerged. It was not the mumble of a dreaming man. It was a whisper, crisp and clear, devoid of any sleepiness. It was layered, as if two people were speaking in perfect unison, one voice slightly lagging behind the other, creating a chilling, digital-like distortion. Liam jerked back from his speakers as if shocked. He played it again. And again. The voice was undeniable. It was coming from Subject B, a man in a medically induced sleep, and it was articulating something impossible. This wasn't a study on sleep. This was an investigation into something that happened during sleep. Something that came through. Liam looked at the remaining tapes, no longer seeing historical artifacts, but a series of locked doors. And he had just heard the first one creak open. The tapes became an obsession. Liam's life narrowed to the glow of his audio software, the hiss of the reels, and the four walls of his studio. He began the meticulous process of digitizing and cleaning the audio, using spectral filters to isolate voices from the background hum of old equipment. Each session felt like a descent. The clinical tone of the doctors began to shift, their professional detachment giving way to a palpable, recorded anxiety. He needed context. He spent days in the local historical archives, sifting through microfiche of old newspapers. He found the original articles about Blackburn's closure, vague references to funding being pulled, and a shift in psychiatric research priorities. It was a cover-up, bland and effective. His breakthrough came when he tracked down Martin Crowe, a retired journalist who had written a single, skeptical op-ed questioning the official story back in '86. Crowe, now in his 80s and living in a quiet suburb, was initially reluctant to talk. But over a cup of tea, the story spilled out. It wasn't just a sleep study, son, Crowe said, his voice raspy. They called it cognitive gateway theory. The idea was that prolonged wakefulness, coupled with sensory deprivation, didn't just cause hallucinations. They believed it could thin the veil, for lack of a better term, between our consciousness and something else. They weren't trying to cure insomnia. They were trying to map the uncharted territory of the human mind. He provided Liam with a stolen, partial roster of staff. The names matched the voices on the tapes: Dr. Alastair Finch, the lead, a brilliant but arrogant neurologist, Dr. Irene Lowell, his pragmatic second-in-command, and 7 volunteer subjects, listed only by letters A through G. Armed with this new framework, the tapes transformed from eerie recordings into a terrifying narrative. Tape 11, Subject D. The audio log noted the subject, a woman, was in stage 4 NREM sleep, her brainwaves deep and slow. Her body was still. But the microphone picked up a frantic, panicked whisper. She described the observation room in perfect, clinical detail, the position of the two-way mirror, the model of the EKG machine, the nervous tap of Dr. Lowell's pen on her clipboard. She described it all while blindfolded and in a sound-dampened chamber. The man in the corner, he isn't a man, her sleeping voice trembled. He's made of angles and silence. He's watching you, doctor. He likes the sound of your heart. On the tape, a glass could be heard shattering. Dr. Finch's voice, previously so controlled, barked, "Shut it down. Cut the audio." But the recording continued, now faint, picking up their hushed, terrified exchange from a distance. "Dr. Lowell, Alastair, she can't possibly know that. The mirror is one way. The machine, she's never seen it. Dr. Finch, it's not her, Irene. It's not her." The most chilling evidence of the doctor's descent into fear was on tape 14, Subject F. The subject was silent, but Finch and Lowell were having a conversation, their voices low and strained. Unaware the recorder was still active. "Dr. Lowell, it's not dreaming, Robert. It's a broadcast. We're picking up a broadcast." "Dr. Finch, from where? For God's sake, from where? The brain doesn't have the architecture for this. This is external. Dr. Lowell, they're learning. Subject B's syntax is improving. Subject D's visual descriptions are becoming more accurate. They're adapting to our reality through the subjects. Dr. Finch, we opened a door, Irene. And we can't close it." The final tape, tape 17, was different. It wasn't a lab recording. It was a personal log, a confession. Dr. Alastair Finch was alone. His voice was a raw, broken thing. He spoke of the echoes, the name the team had given to the presences that spoke through the sleeping subjects. He admitted the project was being shut down, not by the board, but by his own terror. The subjects were to be released, their memories supposedly debriefed, a process he now doubted was effective. "They don't sleep," he whispered, his voice cracking. "They just wait in the static. And they've learned how to use our voices. They use our voices, and they learn our world. I pray the door closes when the subjects wake. I pray." The tape ended with a long, empty hiss. The official record stated all subjects were released. But when Liam tried to find them, he hit a wall. No obituaries, no social security death indices, no property records for any of the 7 names on Crow's list after 1985. It was as if David Chen, Subject B, and the 6 others had walked out of Blackburn and simply ceased to exist. Liam had the story. A horrifying government-sanctioned experiment, a reckless breach of the unknown, and 7 human beings who were its casualties. He had the audio proof. He began assembling his documentary, framing it as a tragic, unsolved mystery from a less ethical age. He focused on David Chen, the voice from that first, chilling tape. Using the old city directories, he found his last known address, a small, post-war bungalow on the outskirts of town. The house was a shell. Empty for years, according to the overgrown lawn and the realtor's lockbox on the door. The windows were dark. He was about to leave when he noticed the woman next door, tending to her roses. Mrs. Gable was in her late 80s, sharp-eyed and wary. It took all of Liam's charm and a fabricated story about writing a local history book to get her to talk. She remembered David. He was a nice boy. Quiet. Studied engineering at the community college, she said, snipping a deadhead. Then he took part in that study. For money, I think. When he came back, he was different. Not violent, no. Just absent. His eyes were always so tired, like he hadn't slept in years. Liam's heart raced. Did he ever say anything about it? About what happened there? She shook her head. Never. But he had a strange habit. Started sleeping with a tape recorder on his nightstand. One of those small, handheld ones. I saw it through his window once when I was checking on him. He told me once, when I asked, that he was afraid of what he might say in his sleep. Said he didn't want to forget. The statement hit Liam like a physical blow. Afraid of what he might say. The door hadn't closed. David Chen knew it. He was trying to monitor himself, to see if the echo was still with him. The experiment hadn't ended, it had just been released into the world. Liam returned to his studio, the final pieces of his documentary falling into a terrifying new shape. It was no longer a story about the past, it was a warning about a lingering contagion. He worked late into the night, the spectral waveforms of the Blackburn tapes glowing on his monitor. He decided to end the video on Mrs. Gable's quote, a haunting coda that would leave his audience with a deep, lingering sense of unease. Just as he was about to render the final file, a new email notification popped up in the corner of his screen. The sender was a jumble of letters and numbers at a secure Proton Mail domain. The subject line was blank. His blood ran cold. The message was brief. You have the tapes. You think the story is about what the subjects said while they slept. You're wrong. It's about who was listening on the other side. My grandfather was Dr. Finch. He didn't kill himself in 1987. He stopped answering them. They don't like to be ignored. With a sense of dread that hollowed him out, Liam dragged the file into his editing software. It was a modern, crystal-clear digital recording. The sound of a quiet bedroom at night. The soft, rhythmic breathing of a single person. The faint rustle of sheets. It was his bedroom. It was his breathing. His blood turned to ice. He never recorded his sleep. He lived alone. As the recording played, a familiar, distorted whisper cut through the domestic silence, the same layered, unnatural whisper from tape 7, Subject B. It was clearer now, more confident, no longer lagging behind itself but speaking as one unified, alien voice. "We know you're listening, Liam." The recording ended. Liam sat in the profound silence of his studio, the hum of his computer the only sound. He was no longer the investigator. He was the subject. The tapes weren't a relic, they were a beacon. By playing them, by amplifying their signal, he hadn't just uncovered a horrifying past. He had announced his own presence, his own consciousness, to whatever waited in the static. Dr. Finch had opened the door. David Chen had carried it out into the world. And Liam, in his quest for the truth, had now invited whatever was on the other side, inside. If you thought this story was terrifying, wait until you hear what happened in the next one. Subscribe before it drops.